And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. We got Cody Stavenhagen, and we got AJax, and we got a lot to talk about today. Fellas, how you doing?
Doing good.
Great as always.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun talking about this Tigers team right now. I'm sure from Cody's perspective, it's a lot of fun to write about, and it's a lot of fun to reminisce with Austin. By the way, we're going to get to all of that today. I did want to do a little quick programming note. We're recording this Friday afternoon. We do not know anything that has happened in Kansas City, but one of those things where schedules just kind of got, crossed up a little bit. And that's okay, because had we done a Thursday podcast to be published early Friday, we would not have gotten the news that we're about to talk about, which is that the Tigers are going to, depending on when you're listening to, have officially called up Dylan Smith. Kind of a rapid rise up the system a little bit, Cody. One of the things that we were just kind of talking about off air over the past couple of weeks is like, something here a little bit. It kind of takes me back to when we first started doing a podcast together, because that was the first draft that we covered, 2021. He was a third round pick out of Alabama. And I think at the time we were like, yeah, that seems like a pretty nice, intriguing prospect. And then those minor leagues are hard. Sometimes you kind of get through the wash, and if you're not producing quickly enough, people don't talk about you. But he has been the talk of Prospect Town in Tigers land here recently, and now he's going to be a major leaguer. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly these guys can move sometimes. Smith has been in the system a while, but he's had some shoulder issues, I think some forearm issues. Injuries have just set him back. He was drafted a little bit more of a pitchability guy out of Alabama. He had some really good feel, did some good things, his first kind of full pro season, and then injuries just got to him. So what's the difference now? Well, the Tigers moved him to the bullpen this year. And pitchability is no longer the word for Dylan Smith. He's throwing upper 90s with a really good hard slider. He is missing a ton of bats. He's become like a power reliever who the Tigers were just kind of raving about. And I had heard it over the past couple weeks. Started getting some people last night saying, hey, Dylan Smith's getting the call. Was able to get that confirmed. This move is happening. Still a little bit of a surprise. He wasn't on the 40-man. He's going to jump on the 40-man, get a call ahead of old friend Matt Manning, even Tyler Owens, who we saw and is a pretty likable pitcher. That's how high the Tigers are on Dylan Smith. Now, everyone wants to know what's the corresponding move. At the time we're recording this, we don't know for sure, but there's a lot of speculation around Jackson Jobe. Didn't talk to the media after his last start. Media got kicked out of the clubhouse, which is a rules violation, but no one wants to hear us whine about that. I've heard the word arm fatigue. I've heard upper arm. I don't know. Nothing's confirmed there. We should know this afternoon whether or not Jackson Jobe's going on the IL. And if he is, I'll be interested to see how they phrase that on the medical report, because the whispers I've heard so far are really vague.
So, like, a little contextualizing for Dylan, he has just over 200 career innings as a professional. And again, he was drafted in 2021. For a little perspective, fellow 2021 draft pick, guy you just mentioned, Jackson Jobe, pitched in 3 minor league seasons, 211 give or take innings. So that gives you an idea of the usage and the injuries and all that stuff. Austin, I'll be curious.
Just thrown 2 1/3 innings in Toledo. They just bumped him up to Toledo, and like, all right, we've seen enough. We're good with this.
Well, obviously the guys are familiar with him, through the years in spring training and then, various minor leagues. But Austin, when a guy comes up, especially maybe some kind of sudden riser, like as a guy who like to be sort of like a leader in the clubhouse, literally and metaphorically, like how do you welcome a guy into a clubhouse when the team's rolling and you're hearing buzz about him, and there's a standard here, but you also want to make them feel comfortable and all that stuff. How did you handle that back in the day?
Honestly, it was just about doing your best to make him feel comfortable. Talk to the guy. You don't want to let him sit over there in his chair and not say anything to him. You welcome him. You kind of show him around, show him, hey, this is where the food is. This is where the snacks are. This is where the weight room is. And, kind of give him a little tour. But you want to, as a player that's been there, you want to just show him how things are done in this clubhouse, how we go about our business on a daily, from the routines that we have. You know, you want to make sure that you're putting him right in there and letting him fit right in to the group, because if they want him to be an important piece, he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to step in right away and figure out how to mesh with this team and be a guy that I think the Tigers are going to have to rely on a little bit. I would always make sure to make a newbie feel comfortable. Just talk to him. You know, you'd be surprised how far that goes, because the nerves are crazy when you get there. You know, you're like, man, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if guys are going to haze me. You hear all these horror stories. None of that stuff they ain't doing stuff like that no more. Like when guys are coming up, man, you want them to contribute, and you want them to contribute right away. So the best thing you can do is just making them feel comfortable. And like I said, just a simple conversation, just to, you know, hey, where you from? Just figure out his backstory. Things like that go a long way with new guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's I can only imagine what's going through, like, you know, somebody's, because, you know, Austin, you started out the season with the team, and that's one thing to make the opening day roster, but to kind of be in different locations, Dylan Smith's case, like in such a short amount of time, and
I was in Erie like 10 days ago.
Yeah, like he probably hasn't had time to think yet. Like he probably, like, they're obviously the Tigers are in Kansas City right now. He doesn't know what state he's in.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, and that's like, and even for me, like you just mentioned, like I started out with the team, but in spring training, those nerves were absolutely there. A lot of those guys, you know, I kind of grew up watching, and I was like, I don't really know if I should talk, if I should not say anything. So I just try to be myself. I just talk to guys. I act like I've been there for a long time. Obviously, staying in my lane, though. I wasn't coming in there super loud. But I also wanted to let them know that, hey, I'm part of this team, and I'm going to do whatever I can to contribute right away. I don't want there to be any question whether I should be here or not. And that's the type of statement, like, we can talk about all this stuff in the clubhouse and how to make somebody comfortable, but it's going to be up to him to go out there and prove that there's a reason why they called me up, and I don't want to go back down.
Yep, and the stakes are high, and we will contextualize those stakes here in a second. But first, a word from our sponsors.
FT fam, you might have a boring, old, crusty, unpretty razor, and it might be expensive. So, AJ, should they consider another option?
Look how cool this is. Look at the color scheme. Look at it. Little sheath to hide the blades when you travel. Works great. I've been using this for a couple weeks now on Harry's. Clean, no bumps, no cuts. Works great. And you know the best part? It's a great price, especially if you use the foul territory code, Scott.
That's right. Harrys.com/foul. Guess what? You can also get yourself a no-risk trial. So if you don't like your shave, no worries. It's on Harry's. They're not worried about it. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally, the trial set is $10. But right now, you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. Use the exclusive link, harrys.com/foul, for a $6 trial set.
All right, coming back here. I just wanted to throw out some kind of simple numbers to kind of give a little bit of an idea about what we're watching from this Tigers team. Now, obviously, this is entering, depending on when everybody's listening to this is entering the series against Kansas City. And the Tigers currently are 37-20. What does that mean? That's basically a .650 win percentage. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, the 84 Tigers, the famous 35-5 start, they finished the season with a .642 win percentage. Right now, the Tigers, if you're an on-pace guy, are on a roughly 105 win pace. Now, I'm not making any predictions. I'm just telling you, with a 37-20 record, that is your pace. All right. And I went and looked this up when, 37 is a random number. So I wanted to contextualize it a little bit. So the 2011 Tigers, LCS team, they won their 37th game on June 14th. The 2012 Tigers, World Series team, won their 37th game on June 29th. The 2013 Tigers, LCS team, won their 37th game on June 13th. This year's Tigers won their 37th game on May 28th. So there's some perspective about what we're watching here. Sometimes in the day-to-day you get caught up in whatever, but those are some real. It's an impressive start, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
No doubt, brother. I mean, they're on, like you said, they're on the pace that's going to be hard to replicate for the guys coming behind them. But it's just impressive to watch because we talk about how they would respond to when they hit a little bump. And we saw that in that Cleveland series where, they got thumped a little bit. But then how did they respond? Come back and roll off, 4?
3.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. That's the thing that we are talking about with this type of team, the special type of team that we're watching and the baseball that we're watching. I'm going to keep saying it's just not a fluke, man. Like when you see a team respond the way this team did with that Cleveland series and then come back out and roll off, 4 in a row, man, that lets you know this team is for real.
Okay, someone in the media room after the finale against the Giants sat down and was kind of like 37-20, like doesn't even feel real. Yeah. And it kind of doesn't. Like it's not a fluke. We know this is a good team, but 105 win pace, like what is? I never would have thought that of this team. Like I thought this could be a competitive team, but like 100, even you go up and down the roster and you look at all the numbers and you're like, oh, all right, this team will win 99. No, they're on 105 win pace. And every time we think they're hitting a bump in the road, like you said, Austin, that Cleveland series, I've called it the low point of their year. It wasn't a great series. And then they come out, they take the finale, Skubal dominates, and then they just outplay the Giants the first 2 nights. And the third game, they really didn't play all that well, but they just kind of wore them out, and end up winning that game. They've tapped into something pretty special, and I don't know if they'll finish with 105, but at this point, like it's hard to put limits on them because they just keep doing it.
Yep.
Well, I think what's kind of impressive about that Giant series, and then you can say the bounce back is part of this too, obviously, but the Giants in a lot of ways have try to play baseball in similar fashion to what the Tigers do, and the Tigers just out-tigered them. And there are other teams that are kind of emulating the Tiger model, and 37-20, you're out.
You could argue this is the 2021 Giants model. Scott Harris did come from the Giants, and this maybe there's some pretty similar vibes there. Although the 2021 Giants didn't have a Tarik Skubal, and it wasn't necessarily a young core that was all going to be together for the foreseeable future.
Well, here's the thing. There are certain moments that I try to remember as like checkpoints in a team's story, and the Giants series was one of those for me because every single time that Justin Verlander came back to Detroit after the trade, it was this big story where it's like you do what hat you're gonna wear and your plaque and. Tell me about your time in Detroit and, kind of the run of the mill.
Did you ever come back here? Do you want to finish your career here?
Like the run of the mill kind of cliche news stories. And then when AJ Hinch became the manager of the Tigers, it was like, that was like another wrinkle where it's like, AJ talking about Verlander talking about AJ and like all these kind of things. I know he's hurt, but there's a good possibility that the last time that Justin Verlander throws a pitch from a mound in Comerica Park, it was a bullpen session that he had this week, as he's trying to come back from his injury. And it could be the last time he's in Detroit as an active player. Could be. You never know. But that possibility exists. And it wasn't really a storyline. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, he's in the dugout right there. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Verlander, we all remember. But we got Skubal now. The Tigers have officially turned a page a little bit in terms of this new era when you're not looking back as much. I don't know if that makes sense, but that stuck out to me this week.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to do this year was let's go talk to Verlander about Skubal, right? And I did it, and it was kind of funny because he got asked about Skubal last year in Detroit, and he was like, oh, yeah, he seems good. To be honest, I haven't really watched him. Yeah. And this year he's like, oh, dude, yeah, I saw the line score, and I was like, I got to go pull up the highlights. And then he just kind of started raving about Skubal and kind of almost being like, I hope this guy can continue the legacy of being a workhorse starter, throwing innings, going to deep into games, even just like the concept of being a famous starting pitcher. If you think about it, in terms of household level names, there aren't that many. And Verlander said, like, who's going to carry that on after me, Max, Kershaw? Well, Skubal, along with Paul Skeens, maybe a couple other guys, very much in the in consideration to maybe reach that type of level.
Yeah, man.
Well,
I think about, like, you think about how, like, with the Mavericks, I know this is probably a touchy subject for some people, but I'm gonna go there though. I mean, you know, Dirks was the man, you know, and then when Luka came, he was like, yeah, you're cool. Like, we see him sitting over there on the floor, but you know what I mean? Hey, look, we got Luka out here. You dropping dimes and 30 with 10. It's just one of those things where it just happens. It's gonna come at some point where somebody's gonna come and you'll always be remembered, but we got this guy now, and this dude is, I mean, we talk about the similarities and things, and the biggest thing to me, honestly, is just the bulldog mentality that I see, the similarities. You know, I played behind this guy for several years, Verlander, and when this dude hit the mound, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what we were going through as a team, as far as if we were winning or losing. It didn't matter. It was this like laser-like focus every single time, and that brought something out. I know it brought something out of me, and I'm sure it brought something out of the rest of the guys that were playing behind him. But when you see a guy going up there like a Verlander, like a Skubal, and they're just bulldogging people, they just have this energy, you know, and it's very infectious to the other guys around them. They make you step your game up. You like, I see him up there working. I got to be on my P's and Q's out here. One, because he's going to look back if I let a ball drop and don't dive for it. He's going to throw his hand up. I'm like, oh, dang, brother, my bad. Like, I just had to be ready. And like, again, like that bulldog mentality, it's just hard to find. And those similarities, obviously, how hard these guys can throw late in the games are similarities like that. But I think Verlander even mentioned it. You know, it's just they're two different type of pitchers. It's a different era. Verlander, you know, he'd come out early, you know, and just spot up 91, 92, maybe pop a 94 in there every once in a while. But boy, by the time he get through that inning or that lineup a couple times, and y'all ain't did nothing yet, it's the first pitch in the seventh be like, you look back, you like 98. What? Boy, got 87? Yes. What you mean 98? You got that in the tank and you've been saving it? And I know lineups I know the other guys are thinking the same thing. Like, yo, I thought you was just gonna be spot up guy today. Now you coming like, and then you get behind and that hee-haw coming. You know that hee-haw, yeah. Well, that hee-haw came, hey, that's when it got nasty late in the game too. That's a whole nother conversation though. But no, I love the comparison, but also I think, in all fairness, you know, to Skubal, Justin Verlander, he did it for a long, you know, extended amount of time, and so only time is going to tell if he's, you know, reached that Verlander, you know, status. But I mean, from what we see right now, I definitely think he's trending that way.
Yeah, the longevity with starting pitchers, hey, you never know. To Tarik's credit, he's like the first to point out, I haven't done this for near as long as JV or any of these guys. I mean, I've sat there and watched him scroll through Justin Verlander's baseball reference and just be like, he's just still kind of scrolling, you know, year after year. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, you're, I'm sure, very familiar with Verlander's greatness, but sometimes it's still like you go and look at the numbers and you just see every year 200 innings, sub-3 ERA. Like it's still kind of a refresher to remember just like how good that is and how rare that is to be able to do that for, you know, 18, 19, 20 years.
So there's a couple things that I think can be true at the same time with this. Like, it's okay to feel the same, like from a fan's perspective, to feel the same that you did with Verlander and when he was in his prime, which again was a pretty long prime. All right, like the, you know, but there are some facts here where there are several years where he was an 8-WAR pitcher, and he did win an MVP award and a Cy Young in the same season.
Yeah.
And in like a 4-year span, including that year, he was top 3 Cy Young finisher 3 times in 5 years. There are levels to this. It's okay to feel like you're seeing some dominance that brings you back to that, but Skubal's not there yet. And by the way, that's okay.
Yeah,
he's there are ways for him to overcome the Verlander shadow. One of them would be the one thing that Verlander wasn't able to accomplish, and that was, win a World Series. If Skubal leads a team to a World Series win, then that conversation really accelerates in a different way. And then, of course, there's that impending free agency thing that we'll have plenty of time to talk about over the next couple of years. We don't necessarily have to do that now, but in my opinion, it's a little bit dismissive of just how long Verlander was dominant to kind of put them in the same conversation resume wise. Yeah. But I think emotionally you're valid in feeling like you're seeing the same level of dominance on a start to start basis. I think that's fair.
I agree 100%.
Austin, you never actually faced Verlander in the regular season.
Nope, but I faced him in spring training and I clapped him. Sure did. Because I knew it was coming. I already know. I've watched it. I watched everything. So I'm like, I'm not going to sit over here. I know you working on stuff, but I need to get my feel good too. So first pick, got him. I got shirts too the same way. But, it's a little different. They look different when they lock it in. But I took that. I got that in the bank. I'm keeping that one forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was like, again, if you care about kind of storylines, the go back to what Cody kind of began this segment about with the sort of like, it's kind of like a validation thing from Justin Verlander and sort of like the old guard, which again, I know he's still a player, but like the old guard kind of given the green light to like embrace Skubal in this way. I actually did kind of appreciate that because Verlander is such an intense guy, at least from the outside. Obviously, I don't know him, but like he's such an intense guy that I don't really feel like he allows himself to speak like that and think like that all that often. But that tells you how special Skubal, is, and definitely most recently was with that start on Sunday. And also, I think Cody, really good point about maybe wanting to see more guys like him, period, that pitch like him, that can have the kind of career, because he's seen the starting pitcher kind of role change a lot in his time in the game. So a little bit of reflective Verlander in his 40s. You don't necessarily expect that all that often, but age is wisdom, I suppose.
You get a little bit more emotional too when you get older. You start feeling those emotions a little bit, and you start reacting and responding to them. It was good, like you said. It was good to hear him give him some praise, because if you don't get it that much from him, if you get it, that means you doing something. So
no, he's grown soft, man. Every time I've ever talked to him, he's like, actually, he's just like great, man. He's
he got soft on the show, man. I'm over here talking about bulldog. He's like a little English bulldog now, a little Frenchie. He turned a little
I hope he doesn't hear that. He might be getting the call.
Somebody running from Verlander. Shoot, let's go.
Yeah, come on anytime, Justin. You're welcome to the podcast anytime.
2:30 now, brother. Hey.
2:30 now. All right. Well, I wanted to get the transition here to another kind of fun moment of the week, or at least memorable moment of the week, was we had an ejection. One Javier Baez had himself, speaking of, being emotional, had himself an emotional time on a pretty bad called third strike call from Phil Cuzzy. And it was one of those things that kind of escalated a little bit. And like I said, he got tossed, and then AJ kind of came out, and AJ's always so pointed whenever he talks to an umpire. And he said on this podcast he was going to get ejected early in the season. It hasn't happened. He believes managers should be managing, and, kind of hard to argue with that kind of logic. But there is this notion out there, Austin, that when a manager gets ejected, like in the right situation, that it can kind of be a little bit of a a rallying cry for the team. These managers got my back, and we got to go out there. A little bit of an emotional uplift. You played for a guy for several years in Detroit that wasn't afraid to speak his mind to the boys in blue, and that was Jim Leyland, who is 10th all time in managerial ejections with 73, and 30 of those happened while managing your Detroit Tigers. So you've seen it, you experienced it. Is there any realness to the notion of the fiery managerial ejection kind of hyping up the team a little bit?
For sure. But first, I just want to say, like, I'm more like AJ, because I never got ejected. I always talk this big game like, I'm gonna do it. This is the year I'm gonna do it. I'm tired of it. But honestly, I wish I would have at the very least been more like what Javier Baez did. He didn't even really like. I can call you out on that terrible call that you come on, cuz like you just that's below the zone. I ain't off route at the hand. I know what it's gonna do. And I can't talk to you about it. We grown men. You talk to me. I talk to you. It get a little heated, like Javi said. We are competing. The adrenaline is all high and everything. So I was just like, I didn't really like that you just got the power just because you sensitive. I can't say something to you. You're gonna hear it. I don't care. It's a bad call. It's terrible. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna throw me out, whatever. But to your point about AJ and about Leyland. I loved it. And the way Leyland did it, though, it was just funny. It was comical. He'd get out there and get in his face, start kicking dirt around and stuff. And you start MFing him, boy, he'll let him have it. But I remember it was this one specific time. I can't remember who we were playing. I know we were down because he went out there and we just didn't have any energy. We were just kind of just going through the motions. And he went out there and let him have it. I don't even know if he was mad or he was just, I think it was more if he was trying to like ignite something in us. And it did, because when he got back in the dugout, he looks at me like, let him have it in the Jack. Let him have it. I'm like, oh man, he was just doing that so he get us ignited, get us some energy. And it did. So I think there is something to be said about, everybody's different, but I think there is something to be said about that. A manager going out there and sticking up for his team. Not that AJ doesn't. I think his style is just different. He's more of a cool, calm, collected dude. Leyland would let it rip. At any given moment, he didn't like some first pitch. If I remember something from last time that you were behind the plate, I'm thinking about that. That wasn't even that bad of a call, but I'm gonna call you out on the last time that you were behind the plate. First pitch, get ejected. You like, whoa. Dang, man, and it just shoots this adrenaline in the team. And again, I think that it just depends on the personalities of the manager. AJ's he's a great manager. I think he gets those boys going, in his own way. But Leyland, man, he just had a way of making you just want to run through a brick wall sometime, man. When you see this little dude out there getting fired up like that, man, you like, man, I gotta get some energy, man. Then go in there and hit with them little marbles real quick and throw it. Like, you didn't even finish it. You just and smack it over there. That was the man, dude. I'm telling you, he's the man. And I enjoyed every bit that I got a chance to be around him and play for him. One of the best managers and just storytellers and all that. So, but yes, I think it does ignite a team with the right personality. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for it, right? I've said, like, I'm totally on board with AJ's thought. Like, you get paid to manage the game. If you're a player, you get paid to play the game. You have to defend your player, but especially a team like the Tigers who have a million moving parts all the time. Hey, the manager's kind of got to be in the dugout, making sure the game is flowing the right way. So I don't have a lot more to add. We've kind of talked about it a lot. One thing, I've spent a lot of time around AJ Hinch, spent a decent amount of time around Jim Leyland. They see the game, man, pretty similarly. Like, different managerial styles because they manage in different eras, but like, in a way, they have a lot in common. They just have very different ways, I think, of going about the way they deliver their messages.
Yeah, I mean,
different era,
Yeah,
like you said.
yeah, and that's part of it too.
and talk about the journey. I mean, the Leyland journey is fascinating. We don't have to get into it, but if you haven't read it, or you haven't read it in a while, go reread it again, because you would probably be fired up too if you were Jim Leyland on a daily basis to be a major league manager. All right, let's wrap up here with something else, kind of light. Another thing, sometimes I'm just like, hey, I wonder what Austin thinks about this. So I write it down, and I was like, all right, well, next time we get him on, I'm gonna have to ask this question, even if it's not that timely. But I think this is kind of timely. Tigers are playing Kansas City Royals in division. Two teams that were rebuilding at the same time. Two teams that made a playoffs at the same time. You got the young superstar and Bobby Witt Jr., and you got obviously Riley Green, same draft class. I like those kind of storylines, as I've said before. It's not really, you wouldn't really call it a rivalry per se. And then we had our fun with the Toronto Blue Jays series happening on rivalry weekend. So I was kind of curious. Obviously, Austin, you guys had playoff battles in your time in Detroit. Like who was your rival? I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be division or anything like that, but like who was the team that you guys kind of looked at as your quote rival, or even players, or whatever? You could take that in any direction you want, but I'm just kind of curious from your time, like who you guys kind of put into that box.
Well, to me, it was always in our division, at least to the way it felt when we played teams within our division. Like Cleveland, it was just some straight up just grinded out games with them. It just felt like it took so much out of you when you left there. You like, man, I'm glad to get out of here. That to me is like the definition of like a rivalry. When every time we go in here, it's just this battle. There's a battle. You benches could clear at any given moment. It was just something about going in there. And when they would even come to Detroit, it just felt like a playoff battle. Like if I beat you or you beat me, like we're going to the playoffs if we beat you. Those games they were so, it's just so much into those games that I just think that for me, at least personally, I felt like Cleveland was one of them. I also felt like Minnesota was, man. Minnesota was a tough team during those times, man. Like they had some guys that could play. So, I mean, it was them. And then Kansas City was like that team that could like ruin your playoff chances if you take them lightly, at least at that time. Like they were like, it's hot here. We really don't want to be here. You go in there, Billy Butler is clicking balls everywhere. And I mean, it's just a completely hey, Billy was clapping now. Hey, but no, it was just, I really felt like those two teams to me felt like rivalries. And then the Yankees was more of like a personal rivalry for me. Like when we played them, like I always wanted to beat them because it's like, oh, you traded me. All right, well then we're gonna beat you, like, so I always took those games like as a personal rivalry because I always wanted to beat them. But like Cleveland, I would say for me that felt like our biggest rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, and we might be, not playing Cleveland right now, obviously, but we might be in the midst of that too, because there's a lot of elements there that Austin just described. I think we saw last year in the postseason, and then saw this past weekend as well. All right, Cody, AJax, anything else we want to get into before we jet out of here?
I think we're good for now.
Yeah,
man. You got Austin? You got anything?
I think that's good, man. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, man. And a lot of this is really cool because I can, show my youngsters, how to play a different style of baseball than they're used to getting on YouTube Kids and looking up just, the home runs and all this. No, we get to look at a different style of baseball, more like an old school style of baseball. So this is really cool for me because now I get to talk about it. And then I get to go show them like, hey, it's not all about launch angle all the time and all this stuff, even though that's very much integrated in this game. We get it. But they just play a style of baseball that I think that these young kids can really see and they can gravitate to of how to play the game.
That's good.
Very well said. We'll end on that. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran_Steckley. Pod page at Tiger Territory _ YouTube, Instagram, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate all of you. So for AJax, Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.